Hey, Bay Youth. Welcome to the So Good podcast.
So good!
Welcome to the So Good podcast. And my name is Aisha.
And my name's Lou. And it's So Good Saturday.
And today we have a very, very special guest. And I'm so excited. So I'm going to have her introduce herself.
Hi, guys. My name is Destiny. I get to serve here at the Bay Church as kind of my husband's partner in crime. We're the youth pastors here at our Brentwood campus and hopefully soon to be both campuses. So we're pumped.
Wait, that's
Super
so good.
exciting.
Speaking of So Good.
Do we want to talk about our So Goods of the week?
Yeah, we do. Okay, Lou, do you want to open up? What's your So Good of the week?
So guys, this past Saturday, I went up to SAC and I went thrifting again. And I went to the bins. I think I said this in the last podcast, but I got so many good things and I'm just super excited. Like I thrifted this jacket and I'm wearing it and I just thought I would wear it in the honor of the fact that I thrifted. Last time.
2 podcasts in a row.
That was my So Good of the week. What about you, Aisha?
I recently I've been applying for like colleges and whatnot. And I recently got into Davis. So
no way.
And I'm just so excited.
Super exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Destiny, what is your So Good of the week?
Oh my gosh. It's pretty early in the week. My So Good of the week is probably that I've been like sleeping through the night as a young mom. That's like probably one of the biggest feats of my life in the last 3 years. And I'm sleeping till like 7:30, y'all.
Okay.
Like that's, I'm living. So anyways, that was so good.
Good. That is so good.
I love.
Well, I saw that you have a drink to, what is that? Your right side?
This is my right side.
Yeah, right side. So why don't we talk about what bevs we have with us today?
Okay. The bev of the week that I have is a yerba mate.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm here for this.
With the accent.
Yerba mate. Oh,
mate.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Destiny?
So I have a pink lemonade brisk, which in the spirit of pink lemonade, because we were out of options at the gas station. But you know what? I love a good pink lemonade. It's my favorite.
I like pink lemonade too. I wanted to go with the yerba mate too today, but I was like, I'm going to bring too many yerba mates on that. So I just went with a regular
nice
caramel.
Oh, you're caffeinated.
Or I'm caffeinated today.
You're
so
caffeinated.
Forgive me if my brain is like foggy today, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We're all bevved up. Praise God.
We are bevved up.
Yeah. So before we get into like the gist or like the topic that we're going into today, like who are you, Destiny?
Who am I?
How did you come about the Bay? How'd you get plugged in? You briefly mentioned Pastor Nathan, but what else? I'm sure there's more.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about my life up to this point? Do we just want a quick... Okay.
Yeah, a quick introduction.
Okay, so I am a Bay Area gal.
Hey.
I grew up actually in the South Bay, closer to like San Mateo, Mountain View area. But then my family moved out here to Concord when I was like 7. And so this is where I really felt like I grew up. And we came out here after my parents had helped plant a church in San Francisco. And we actually started coming to what was then Calvary Temple Church, but is now the Bay Church because we rebranded. But yeah, so I grew up at the Concord campus. Like this was my home church. I grew up in Concord. I grew up going to private Christian school, Contra Costa Christian, which was a very small school over in Walnut Creek. And then I went to Berean in high school. And so, yeah. And then I left the Bay Area for college. Met my husband. We were youth pastors for like 4 years before God called us back over here to California to be the youth pastors at the Brentwood campus. And it has just been like our life's joy to get to do that. I've worked odd jobs here or there, but we started having kids basically at the same time we came over here back to the Bay Area. So I've been a full-time mom and I have 2 little ones, Eliana and Theo, who are both under 2, and I kind of had them back to back. So we have just kind of been in like a whirlwind of a young kid season, but it's been rocking. So
yeah, they're just the 2 cutest little kids I've ever seen in my life.
I love them so much.
I just love them. Yeah. Well, So one of the questions that I'm curious about your story, I'd want to know, like, did you set any expectations that you perceived more as like a goal for perfection? And just like, because perfection is an illusion, so it's impossible to obtain that. But was there any sort of goal that you would set for yourself as maybe a kid, a high schooler? Do you want to like share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. And to like give a little bit of background here. Like when I was chatting with the girls, our hosts today, just kind of about like what parts of my story I wanted to share. I had just kind of shared that a big portion of what I struggled with was like this just difficulty with like an insatiable need for perfection. And at the time I didn't have enough like self-awareness to really know where that came from. But I think I did set a lot of expectations on myself. And what those looked like were expectations that like I couldn't fail. That was a huge one. Like you cannot fail. If you fail, like this is catastrophic for you. I set a lot of expectations that like I needed to outperform not only myself, but like other people in all the things that I was doing. I had to like get really good feedback about my life, right? Like I needed people to like be saying good things about me and liking who I was and my performance and all of that. Because if I didn't get good feedback, that meant that like I wasn't hitting the mark. And then also kind of at home, there was a lot of like, hey, I need to be like the peacemaker in my family. I think because there was a lot of often anger and like fighting, I felt like in order to be like the child that my parents could be proud of, I had to resolve that. Like I had to mediate fights. I had to be the one to like be the peacemaker and the manager and the like damper of maybe like fights that could have gone further and stuff like that. Like I just felt like I was constantly managing not just myself and people's perception of me, but also my family and even people's perception of my family, because I grew up in a Christian house, but like we all, I think, especially those of us who grew up in church are aware, like sometimes like as human beings, the reality is we don't always hit the mark. And so trying to constantly manage those things meant just like a lot of emotional stress and anxiety. And so those expectations really drew me into that.
Yeah. That's amazing though. Your story is, we're not even like all in yet and I'm already like getting goosebumps and everything.
Oh gosh.
But you mentioned this like constant need of like feeling or like having to be like that perfect child or the harmonizer, or the peacemaker. Is there like a specific example or like experience in your life that you can share with us without like names or whatever, like as much as you want to share, like that can, where you felt the pressure of like having to be the perfect child?
Oh gosh. This one's hard. I think it came out in a lot of different ways, pretty much anywhere I went. I had a lot of like hypervigilance about failure, and because like I couldn't fail, like when I did fail, it meant that like I wasn't enough and that I was somehow very unworthy of love and affirmation unless like I felt like I had earned it. I'll give a funny example first and then maybe a more serious example. But like, as a kid in the 5th grade, you know, you're in private school, you have to choose an instrument in 5th grade and do band. Like you have no choice. And of course, in my family, my dad had played the trumpet since like the 7th grade. He always wanted one of us to like take that up. And anyways, I just so happened to be the kid who was like, yeah, Dad, like I'll make you proud. And turns out I was actually really good at it. But here's the problem. I have terrible stage fright, like insurmountable stage fright, where like my body will just shut down. My knees will knock. Like try having an embouchure, which is like the way that you put your lips when you're playing trumpet. Like try having like a tight embouchure when like your face, like your muscles are literally shaking.
Oh, wow.
And so like not only that, I felt like I was going to throw up. So like there's all this problem with the fact that like I'm a great trumpet player. They put me on first trumpet and they want me to perform at like our band performances by myself, like solos and duets.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
And so like all the pressure was there. Plus I knew I was so terrible in front of crowds. And so I would just like bomb, right? But like before I do it, like I would practice like myself to death and like be like, this has to be perfect. And if you don't hit this note like this, like you're such a failure. And like it was just so harsh on myself. And so like there was just one time where like after I finished performing, I was just so angry at myself and I was like, I'm never doing this again. But then that talk of like perfection was like, no, if you don't do it again, there's no way you can prove to yourself that like you could do this right. And so I don't know. I'm realizing now, like I thought this was going to be a silly example, but it's actually pretty serious. Like even in 5th grade, the way that I was talking to myself was very like, do good or else.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's honestly really relatable as I like listen just to that simple story of being in 5th grade. Like, I know I can relate to that personally, being like such a perfectionist when it comes to myself and like not meeting the standard. And even like, oh no, you're not going to not just do it again. Like you're going to do it and prove to them and prove to yourself you're going to do this perfectly.
Yep.
And you're going to keep doing it until you're perfect at it. And then you're okay. Sometimes you're okay. And then sometimes you're not and you got to keep going.
Yes.
And I think that's evident in every aspect of life. Like you said, your home life, I'm sure your church life and school. And so how did those 3 different areas of your life contribute to the expectations that you even set for yourself? And what factor did each of those play in your life specifically? So your home, your church, and your school life.
Yep. Yeah. So like, I'll start with youth group, because youth group ended up being a big one, especially in high school. I kind of somehow managed to position myself as like the good girl. So like I joined student leadership. Like there was not a Sunday you were going to catch me missing student leadership.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Like I was like the note taker. I was the like, oh, we're going to do accountability partners. I don't have sin.
Oh my gosh.
What is sin? You have sin, I'm sure, but not me, you know? And like, it's so gross to even talk about. And, you know, to some degree, it is a little bit like overblown the way that I'm describing it. But that was all definitely operating in my experience at youth group. I was very like, you know, try being like the most perfect and like well-groomed and just like thoughtful and like everything, like every good quality you can think of, while also being like the most humble person in the room. Practically impossible, but I told myself like, oh no, you can do it. You know, like you can hit the mark. And like I realized, especially towards like mid high school, that like people were so turned off by me sometimes because like they could see that I was just so insatiable about how perfect I had to be. And so like whether it was like on missions trips or you know, always being there for every service day or whatever, like there was a lot of me, and I want to point this out because I think this is true of other students too. There was a lot of this that had to do with the fact that like I genuinely felt deeply called to ministry. Like I felt like this was where, not just like where I shined, but like where all was right with the world, like where I could give my gifts and where they were really utilized well. And also where I just felt the most deep sense of passion and purpose and safety. Like ever since I was little, I just loved church. I loved scripture. I loved getting to learn about scripture. And so all that in me, that what I believe is like beautiful things that were gifted to me from God, were kind of distorted when I allowed them to be gripped by my perfectionism. And so that was kind of what youth group looked like. And then at home, it was kind of like the harmonizer. I had to be the harmonizer with my family, the feelings manager, make sure everybody's happy, right? I was a big protector, whether it was at school or at home. Like I was big, like mama bear, like nobody gets to mess with the people that I love. Like, you know, my perfectionism was a little bit about control of like perception of me, but it was also about power. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but like some things happened to me growing up that made me feel very powerless. And so my ability to control people's perception of me and also to control how other people acted made me feel like I had some sense of power back. And so I think that was a big one as well at home, was like I felt a sense of power when like I could control like whether or not other vulnerable people were getting hurt and if I could defend them. And then at school, it was a lot of like, hey, I got to get all A's. I need to outperform my smartest friends, like, or at least like learn from them so I can get as good as possible. I had to be loved by my teachers. Everyone hated me for the fact that I was like such a teacher's pet. Like I was like, my teachers have to love me. I have to figure out how to do everything right for them. And then like I had to really excel at sports. Like if I didn't get an award on awards night at Fuddruckers, like forget those chicken nuggets. Like I'm not eating until I get my award.
Oh my.
And I'm, you know, that's kind of tongue in cheek because like I would always eat my chicken nuggets and fries. Like that would be dumb, but
yeah,
as you should.
But yeah, so I just felt like in every, like you said earlier, in every aspect of my life, I was very aggressive, like always trying to work towards excellence, always trying to be diligent. And like, but it was never from like a place of health. It was always from like a deep anxiety that like, if I don't do this right, if I don't achieve, if I don't control, if I don't control the outcome, I have failed and I'm not worthy of the love and attention and respect that I so long for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned like what your expectations of being that perfect child and having control, where it all kind of stemmed from starting from youth to your home life to school and everything. And I'm sure all of us can relate in a different way. Like for me, I totally relate to like the school, like having the straight A's, being that student athlete and whatnot. And I know a lot of the viewers can relate to that as well. So what are some things that you have done specifically that has kind of helped you or like give you a sense of peace on overcoming that like mindset of having to like have control over everything?
Yeah. So if I could, I just want to backtrack a little bit and kind of talk about like the root of the issue, because I haven't really talked about that as much. Just because I feel like when I answer that question, it'll be a little bit more clear.
Yeah, give some background.
So a lot of my drive for excellence, like a good portion came from my personality, right? Like I feel like just naturally I'm a very like driven, very ambitious person, but I wasn't healthy. And that unhealth came from fear. And so like the conversation about like anxiety and mental health wasn't really a conversation the way it is now for you guys. And so public and just like well understood when I was in high school and middle school. But like had it been then, I think I would have realized like I had some pretty high functioning anxiety and stress that came from fear. Because if you boiled it down to one very fundamental question, like what was I always asking? I was asking, can I be fully known and still fully loved? And based on some really formative experiences in my childhood, and some really traumatic experiences in my childhood, and then elementary and middle school and high school days, I decided that without a shadow of a doubt, the answer to that question was no. I couldn't be fully known and fully loved. And so those experiences pushed me to be in like a state of like hypervigilance and fear about like, how can I control my life because it was so out of control in those moments? How can I secure love or something like love, or at least something that feels like real love without giving anybody access to me in a way where they could hurt me like that again, or they could traumatize me like that again. And so the only way forward was to try to, control, to try and control what people thought of me, figure out what they wanted, and then outperform that, right? Like all the things that I named earlier. But like constantly managing that was exhausting and eventually brought me to a place where I want to say in early high school, that was kind of where it all came to a head. And again, like mental health was like not as much a conversation. Like kids were depressed. Yeah. But like depression was like like only like a severe chronic issue. Like there were no other forms recognized or anything like that. But I would say like I just felt like I was drowning. Like my life was just like consuming me like every day. And I lived like such a comfortable life in a suburban area with a Christian family and all of that, right? But like behind closed doors, I was drowning. I was also deep in some pretty serious, just like sin online, and like just really feeling like I was living a double life because there was like this part of me that was going undealt with. And then there was also a part of me that was like the church girl and the like good girl at school and all that stuff. And like those two lives didn't merge well. So I was like, okay, I have to hide one to keep love in the other, you know? And so I had to make a decision my freshman year, like, am I going to do something about it? So to answer your question, like, what did you start doing to like start resolving this? There were a couple things. The first one was opening myself to radical, visceral, and by visceral, I just mean like very deeply felt and experienced and consistent experiences of real love. So whether that was conversations with trusted pastors and leaders where I could kind of spill the beans and put my life out on the table, and with a trusted partner who, you know, had lived around the corners that I haven't, you know, turned yet in life, sort through those really tricky areas of like sin or confusion or like, man, this is such an idol for me. Why can't I stop trying to control my life? Why can't I feel the freedom to just like not have to worry about my performance and that kind of thing? So that was a big one, was like opening myself up in friendships and in mentorship to like really radical visceral experiences of love, as well as just like to God in worship and like at youth group and in my private time at home. Like, God, you know, I need you to begin to unravel this for me. I don't even know where to start, you know? So like asking God for that. Therapy was a big one. And feel free to stop me. I know I've been kind of talking a lot.
Shout out to therapy.
Feel free to interrupt me whenever to ask questions or give comments, but therapy was huge. If I'm honest, therapy didn't start till I left home and went away to college. And college was the first time where I sat in a room and somebody like looked me in the eye when I was in chapel. It felt like they were looking me in the eye. And they were like, hey, we have a free counseling center. You just left your house and you're like starting the rest of your life in a way. And there's probably some stuff to sort through. And I was like, you're so right. And they were like, it's free and take advantage of it. And also it's a really good thing. But like growing up, I was told like counseling is for crazy people. Yeah. Like the wackos need counseling and therapy. Like
I feel like that still happens.
We don't, you know, like, no. And so that was so freeing. And again, working with a professional to kind of unravel things in a way that was super safe. They didn't know anybody I talked about in that room, you know, like it's a neutral third party. It was so nice. And then here's the third thing I would say, living new scripts. So the trauma that I experienced, as well as like all the experiences that I kind of like collected and put into like my backpack of life, right? Like just like kind of the baggage, so to speak, that I brought around with me. They all formed in me scripts for like how I respond to life, how I love, how I receive love, what I believe about life and love and sex and God and friendships and jobs and vocation and all of those things, like all the things that matter to us and purpose and all of that. And so part of the work of therapy and mentorship and friendship and love that I just mentioned previously was to identify those scripts that were not serving me, that did not align with the truth of the gospel and the truth about not just what God thought of me, but what God did for me, what God secured for me. Yeah. And then do away with those scripts and say, okay, what is the script that I need to adopt? What is the script that the gospel gives me? And then begin to try and incorporate that into my life. And that's kind of been what the last 6 years of marriage to my husband, as well as just life in general, has looked like.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's
amazing.
Really powerful. And I just want to thank you for sharing bits and pieces and like your story. And I think that, I mean, even for me personally, like those are a couple different things that I've like done for myself And I mean, I know Aisha can agree, like therapy has just been something, and I know that there's like that negative like stigmatism around it, and it's really sad because it's helped my idea of perfection and this like illusion that's literally never going to be attainable for me. Yeah. And that perfection is really just this desire to control things. And it sucks when you just realize like I'm not meeting it and I'm like not perfect and I'm not doing this and just I'm going to keep controlling more, or I'm going to keep doing things. And or even like the double standard that you set for yourself of I'm the good Christian girl on the outside, but nobody understands what it's like on the other side of this.
Yes.
And what it looks like to just be in the dark, and it sucks, and you're like hitting rock bottom and you're just like sitting there like, oh my life.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, where are you? Like, where is this? Like, when is it going to get better? And all these things. And it's still, you're just sitting there like, I'm still not perfect. And you're in the dark, you know? Yeah. And so listening to that as somebody who struggles with a lot of the same things, it feels a lot like I'm just not alone in the whole thing. And it feels better that there's ways to do it healthily, and you don't have to sit in the dark for forever. That the things that are consuming you are not going to be with you for forever. That there's ways to solve it, and ultimately, like God is sitting there, right there, like you don't have to be perfect, and I still love you. Like you don't have to measure up to these standards that you're setting for yourself, because I don't even have those standards for you. Like I just want you to come to me and love me.
Yeah, it's so amazing to see like the role God plays in each of our lives, and especially like for you specifically, just like with your testimony of like the perfect child, or like having to control everything, or be the harmonizer or peacemaker. So like, just to add on that, like how big of a role did God play in your life as you're maneuvering through this want of like being the perfectionist and whatnot? Because I feel like there's a lot of kids or students, or even like adults, young adults, heck, like that are struggling through this, that have this constant want of controlling everything in every aspect of their life and wanting to know what happens next. So like, how does God kind of give you a sense of peace in all of that?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great question. The truth 100% is that there is on no planet any way that I could have recovered from how aggressive my obsession with control was without the Lord. There is not a framework that exists outside of the scriptures and the life of Jesus that is going to set a person like me, who is so entrenched in that idol, and honestly in that bondage. Like it was a slavery. Like I knew it wasn't good for me, but like there was nowhere else to go, and I literally felt like I was handcuffed to it. Like there was no getting out of it unless there was someone who could break me free. And so when I think about the first step that I made as a 14-year-old to solve this problem, it was giving my life to the Lord. And truthfully, I was at rock bottom. Like I was always very jealous. I always tried to like sensationalize my testimony, because like it was always like I had drugs and alcohol and I partied and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, but then I met Jesus. Right. But for me, I had known Jesus my whole life. But the day that I devoted my life to him was very uneventful and very like, it was some weird dude in Santa Cruz who's supposed to be preaching about the Bible, but ended up talking about his daughter named Ocean the whole time. And so I like honestly got up and left. We were on like a spiritual retreat with my school. And I got up and left, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have my own encounter with God. And I was just like, God, I am at ground zero. Like I will probably, I wasn't having suicidal ideation, but I was like, I will probably end up taking my life if I'm not careful, like because of the headspace I'm in. And I want to be careful about that too, because I know that can be very triggering. But the good news was that sitting there on those steps that day, I felt very assured that God was going to meet me and my life was not going to end. This was just the beginning. And that was a promise I held on to every day and still do every day of my life, when it literally feels like the stress or the anxiety or the relapse, so to speak, is too much. Just remembering like this is not the end of my life. Every day is the beginning. God has dealt with all the enemies I used to run around with. And the final enemy is death. Death wants to take my life away. Control wants to take my life away. Anxiety wants to take my life away. It wants to spend my hours on useless things. It wants to waste away everything that I have that's valuable to give to the Lord that he can double. And he dealt with those very decisively when he gave his life. And I also just want to say something apart from just like giving my life to the Lord that set me free was very intentionally identifying who Jesus was in light of what I was dealing with. So let me give you an example. When I realized that Jesus was a transformer and not a rejecter, then I didn't have to work as hard to not be rejected by other people.
Oh, that's good.
And I didn't have to work as hard to not fear failure. Because like, think about it. When you fail so bad at something, but you can think of one person who you can safely bring that to, what does that mean? That means that you've experienced real love from them, right? Like 100%. That, like when I realized that Jesus, knowing everything about me, having like the most material to blackmail, mock, destroy me if he wanted to, but instead that he's the kind of God who wanted to instead like bring that in, shine a light on it, not so that he could point it out and like, you know, just do me in, but to heal me. Then I was safe to step into the light. Then I was safe to have honest conversations, because it was like, even if an honest conversation with a leader at the church went bad, it didn't matter because my failures had a solution. And the only person to secure that solution was not my pastor. It was not my friends at youth group. It was not my family. It was Christ.
Yeah.
And he's untouchable.
Yeah.
And so when I was able to just really come to grips with like, I had to confront that and say, do you actually believe that? Because if you actually believe that, you can go to school, you could be humiliated, you could honestly face things that feel like social suicide or just like emotionally vulnerable, and come out the other side, whatever happened, and say, my life is secure. My heart is secure. There is a way to recover from this. There is healing for this. There is a way forward. And I'm not just untouchable because nothing bad can happen to me. I'm untouchable because God can heal whatever happens to me. So anyway,
So
sorry. That was like a moment.
No, that's so good. Like truly, like
my heart was beating.
Yeah.
I was getting goosebumps. It was too good.
I think once you find yourself in the Lord and you find your faith, that anxiety and like anxiousness behind the, oh my gosh, I'm failing, or this is like, I am dying inside of this public embarrassment and I'm like, again, I'm failing. And but then that all goes away when you have peace of mind in the Lord.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a beautiful testament to all of that. And I mean, do you want to add anything before?
No, you guys are I'm like speechless right now. You guys take No, I absolutely believe in like our traumas don't define us. Our past doesn't define us. Our experiences don't define us. Even the good ones and the good like wins and those so goods of the week don't really define us.
Yeah.
Like there's only one true person that defines us, and that's God. And because when you have that mindset and you kind of just give it all to him, it really just makes your like shoulder, like weight lifted off your shoulders. You can take a deep breath.
Ooh, I can breathe again.
And so I truly believe in that. And I think it's beautiful. Like her testimony is definitely a testament to that.
It is. It's so big. It's really powerful because I think it's such a an unseen common thing that a lot of people don't even realize that they're struggling with, or realize is a really big problem and a really big like weight that they're just carrying all the time, every single day. And that leads me to our next point, but just also in general, what are like three main tips that you can think of, or even just like a couple or whatever comes to mind that you can give like high schoolers, middle schoolers, just even like young adults, anybody that like may happen to be watching, but to like of creating like healthy mindsets, like kind of stepping out of this perfection of an illusion of that, and and that these like expectations that they're setting for themselves, like what are 3 main things that you can kind of give them? If you can give 3, but whatever is.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I would say overall, what's important to remember is that who you're becoming what matters far more than what you are achieving. Because, you know, like we love diligence, we love excellence, we love good behavior. Awesome. Those can be very good things in the right order. And when they're the fruit, they're good when they're the fruit of a healthy life and they come from good, healthy roots, not rotten roots, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look under the soil. And I think that's probably step 1. I would say start with first piece of advice is like, we have to begin, and this has to happen in a communal context as well as in private space. You have to begin to reflect on your life in a way that isn't just what happened in the past, but what has happened shaped me? How have I allowed it to shape me? What ideas have I adopted because of what I went through that's motivating my actions right now? And that takes time. We can't always answer that for ourselves. Sometimes it takes conversations with a professional, a therapist, a pastor who loves us, who knows us, who we trust, will keep our lives in confidence and also, maybe give us a little bit of perspective. I think another second thing to adopt is start to pay attention to the pace of your life. Especially for people who are like me, who we strive for perfection, we strive for, again, excellence, all of those things. The pace of life is often extremely frantic. And we try to wear it so gracefully, right? We try to look so like, oh, this isn't hard, when it's really hard. And that's because we weren't created for the kind of just like, you know, all systems go all the time, like never rest, never quit. Even if your body's resting, your mind can't be present where you are, right? Like, and so adopting helpful practices of like Sabbath. On this day, 100%. I stop. And I don't stop because it's just like a good thing to check off every week. I stop because I am not my provider. I don't provide myself with social security. I don't provide myself with like everything that I have, right? Like there are lots of spiritual disciplines, so to speak, that are really good ways to like keep that in check every week. And that's why they become rhythms. So I would say those are 2 big things that for me have been huge in shifting my life from the way that I used to live to now being a million times more free.
Yeah. I love that. Oh, that was so good. Thank you for just sharing your story and just opening up and really like just diving deep with us. It was amazing just having you on here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I feel honored.
Yeah. I just feel blessed to know your story and like hear your advice on just some really good stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's all for today, guys.
Yeah. I mean, that's all for our little topic that we wanted to talk to you guys about today. But what's something that you want to remind them of, Aisha?
Guys, don't forget to follow our Instagram @thebay.youth. Don't forget the dot. That's where you can keep up with all of our events, all of our just whatever's upcoming,
podcast
notifications,
updates.
podcast updates, cool reels, all the good things. But what's a cool event that is coming up that everyone should definitely know about?
I'm so glad you asked that, Aisha. One really big event to kind of just, wrap up our year and just say goodbye to 2023.
Yeah.
Is our Friendsmas, and that is happening on December 12th and 13th, one at our Concord campus and one at our Brentwood campus, and you don't want to miss it. It's going to be so much fun, and we're just going to have a blast with you guys, so don't miss it.
Don't miss it.
Those are all our updates for you today, and we just want to say thank you to Destiny.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
It was so fun.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next.
Bye.